key points about your bow arm and the movement we need when we are bowing across the string. So first things first, let's get our violin. We're going to talk about our bow placement. So what I mean by that is where we put our bow on the violin. We need to make sure that our bow is right in between the bridge and the fingerboard. And actually the best place is to make sure it's right over those F holes. So this little curl here at the top, that's where we want our bow to be. So we have 5 lanes on our violin. This is lane 1. This is what it would sound like. Not the greatest. Lane 1, lane 2, lane 3, lane 4, and lane 5. So as we move closer to the fingerboard, the quieter, dampened the sound becomes, and the closer you get to the bridge, the crunchier and louder. So we want to be right in lane 3, right in the middle, with our bow hair over the F holes. So that's our bow placement. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about bow weight. So if we're playing without any weight in the bow, this is what it'll sound like. Kind of creepy, not a nice full sound. So we want to add a little bit of weight. And when I say weight, I don't mean pressing into the string with my hand. I just mean kind of resting my hand and letting the weight of my arm settle here, right in that bow hair. This is what it would sound like if I was to press. So that is a common sound you hear with beginner violins because they think they have to work really hard to make a sound. Really, it's the weight of your arm flowing from your back through into the bow sitting right here. So what I like to tell my beginning students and even some of my older students is that there is a monkey hanging from your elbow and keeping your elbow lower. Your elbow, especially when you're starting on a down bow, so right at the frog, your elbow should be lower than your wrist. Yeah, I'm going to show you an example of a full down bow. I'm just going to stand up so you can see the whole thing. So I'm going to play on my A string. The only time that my elbow is higher than my wrist is down here when I'm at the tip of my bow. So other than that, make sure that when you're starting a bow, your elbow is lower. You can see that. When I start my down bow, my wrist is quite bent, and this is called pronation when it's bent like this. And what that does is it tilts my bow away from me towards the fingerboard. So now, when I do my down bow, I immediately want to supinate. And what that means is, we're doing the opposite of that. Our bow, or our wrist, is going to kind of collapse. So I'm going to show you that again. So, at the frog, I'm pronated, my wrist is up here, and my bow is tilted. And now, almost right away, I'm thinking about supinating. And what that does also is it transfers your bow from the edge to flat. So when we start here, we're tilted. And then right away, we're flat. And we need to stay flat all the way to the tip. So what that looks like if I do a down bow into an up bow, I'll show you that. So starting pronated. And then when I came back up to my pronation, that tilted my bow again. So whenever you're at the frog, you're on a tilt. So a lot of beginners, sorry, I'm just tilted out of here. Give me 1 second. A lot of beginners will do this when they're bowing. And what that is they're bowing with their elbow and they're twisting like this, and it moves the bow all across the string. So it's really important to think of your elbow as sort of a hinge. So this is our shape here. This is our box shape. So we start in a triangle, then our elbow is our hinge. There's our box. So there's very little sideways motion like this. It's mostly straight down in front. So when you're doing a down bow, especially, make sure that you're thinking about lining your hand up to your belly button. So it's sort of a downward and forward push with your arm instead of, we're not doing this. We're not swinging around, as you can see. And that's quite exaggerated, but I have seen some of my beginners do that, where they're swinging like this, and it really affects their sound quality, and your bow will never be straight. So again, let's make sure that we're playing over the F hole. So I'm going to line myself up here with the proper bow placement, right in lane 3. I'm going to make sure that my wrist is supinated, pronated. Pronated means that it's bent up like this. But I could still technically balance a coin here, right? So we never want our coin to fall off the back of our hand, but we do want our wrist high here. All right, so again, my bow is tilted, my wrist is pronated, and now I'm going to start my down bow, and I'm going to try to supinate naturally, but also quickly. Pronated, supinated. And that pronation and supination, it's going to give you that a smooth bow change. I don't know if you've ever watched professionals performing too. They have this amazing directional change with their bows, and it's gorgeous to watch. So with our supination and pronation, that's what we're trying to achieve. It's going to affect your sound quality, control of the bow, everything. Another quick exercise you can do to get that supination happening, again, remember, this is pronated, this is supinated. Without your bow, I want you to think about the weight of the bow being right here in this first joint of your index finger. So take your other hand flat and pretend it's your dog or your cat, and I want you to pet your puppy or your kitty with that first knuckle. Okay, so not my other hand, I'm using this here, and I want to feel the weight on the back of my hand here. Just do that a few times. All right. Okay, so now with the bow, I'd like you to put that on your shoulder, on your left shoulder, okay? And at the top, we're pronated. And then as soon as you start your down bow, I want you to think about that feeling of the weight in that knuckle here, and you're petting your kitten or your puppy, but you're leading with that knuckle. So you can see immediately my fingers are actually changing. They're moving around here on the bow. And if you notice, when I start my down bow, my knuckle here is under the wood. So this sort of motion. And you want to keep everything nice and loose and fluid. This is really exaggerated, but it kind of gets the idea across. So when you're on the shoulder, again, lead with that knuckle. You see how your hand immediately supinates, and you'll feel that movement and the knuckle dropping below the wood of the bow. And once you've done that a few times, try going from a down bow to an up bow. So again, here, up bow, tilting, down, up, down, up. Try not to grab with this knuckle, or this finger, I mean. If you need to, try lifting your finger off of the bow. You'll also see that on my down bow, my fingers are curled, and on my up bow, my fingers are straightening. Okay, so now I'm going to switch to my violin. And I'm going to use my A string again. So I'm pronated, and I'm going to think about that supination, petting my puppy or my cat with this knuckle here, that's where the weight is, and right into supination. And I would recommend doing this in front of a mirror so you can see whether your wrist is flexible or not. What a lot of my students do, and what I even did in the beginning, is your wrist doesn't really move, and that affects your sound quality. Making sure that this drops under the bow on your down bow. Alright, so that is some of my bowing techniques and exercises to do to really get that pronation and the supination of your wrist happening. Alright.